Welcome to Hero Movement. I'm Luke Jones, and a question that I've seen quite a bit lately is how can I start to improve mobility and flexibility on my own and start to see lasting results with it. So you might be doing a bit of foam rolling here and there and a bit of stretching now and again, but you're not actually seeing the results that you'd like to see. You're not seeing lasting changes. Today I want you to be empowered and have the ability to do daily maintenance on your body. Like Kelly Starrett says at Mobility WOD, you can make lasting positive changes for your well-being and for your performance. So I'm going to take you through the 3-step mobility method that I use in my own practice and with any client that I work with to improve mobility and flexibility, address common posture issues, and just enhance our overall movement and life experience. Let's take a look. So the way I see it, there are 3 main components that we need to make lasting changes when it comes to our mobility. They're to recognize, to release, and then to reinforce. You can call it the triple R mobility method because it sounds so cheesy. So whether you're looking to improve your squat, to reduce hip pain, to improve your overhead mobility for handstands, run better, or just simply be able to lift groceries up or play with your kids. This framework is something that's designed to apply to just about every mobility challenge and postural issue that we might come across with a little bit of adapting. Something you can work through on your own or with the guidance of a coach. I might have come up with a stupid, cheesy name, but it's not something I've completely invented. Like most things in the fitness and, well, anywhere really. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and this is just a slightly different way of looking at it. One last thing before we get in is that if you want a condensed version of this video, I put together an infographic that explains everything in a quick, easy visual manner, and that you can get hold of that for free in my Hero Academy, which is linked down below. You can print it off, put it on your fridge. Oh, the fridge just turned on. That's weird. Make it into a paper airplane or do whatever you want. So that's in the link in the description box below. So let's dig into part 1, which is to recognize. So by recognize, I basically mean we're assessing our baseline. We're identifying the movements and the positions and the patterns and restrictions that are potentially holding us back or that we want to work on. Kind of like a mindfulness thing. We're becoming a bit more aware of our body, where it is right now, how it differs to where we'd like to be, and try not to judge that too much. So how do we go about doing it? So the simplest level, level 1, we can just assess our body as a whole, how it moves in everyday things that we enjoy doing. We're just broadly thinking about how our body feels when we practice our yoga or lift weights or go for a run, or we're just doing housework and then just doing our everyday thing. So it's kind of a bit abstract, and it can be useful, but it doesn't necessarily give us the specifics that we're then going to use to actually improve our mobility, improve our performance. So as we go to level 2, we zoom in a little bit. So here we're assessing specific movement patterns. So you can think of things like the FMS screen by Gray Cook. Kelly at Mobility WOD has got the 14-day challenge. GMB have got the Elements program. There's loads of different things you can use to assess how well your body moves in specific patterns. So we can pick up a lot from these specific patterns that we can then use to inform our practice. So if we take the deep squat as an example, we might be struggling to get down there and getting down without rounding our back. So just as a base level, we can assume that there might be some issues with dorsiflexion at the ankle. We might be missing some hip flexion, bringing the knee to the chest, and we might also be struggling with some thoracic extension too. So that can kind of inform our mobility work and make it more focused. But then we can zoom in a little bit closer to the micro, looking at level 3. So now we're concerned with individual areas of the body, maybe even individual joints and the fascia and connective tissue around the joints. So going back to the squat, if you were to dig a little bit deeper, maybe in your analysis, a video analysis, or with a coach, you might see that it's your right ankle that's more of an issue than the left. And you might specifically be missing dorsiflexion because your calf is tight, or maybe you're weak at the front of the ankle and the kind of the tibialis anterior area. There might be some fascia that's kind of tacked down around your heel. So we identify the more specific restrictions and imbalances and weaknesses, and then use them to inform our practice. So that's kind of it for point 1. We're assessing our current position, our movement patterns, figuring out where we're weak and where we're kind of tight, and maybe where we need to strengthen and lengthen. We're going to use that information to inform us through the next 2 R's. So R number 2 is to release. So we've identified the position or the pattern that we want to improve. Now it's time to start improving our range of motion and maybe releasing some of that tension. So we're freeing up some of the areas that are potentially holding us in this compromised position and potentially even causing some pain and discomfort as well. So there's loads of ways we could do this, but I've grouped them into 2 main categories. The first is using pressure. So we could use deep tissue work like foam rolling, or using kind of lacrosse ball to dig into deep tissues, maybe even some massage. So we're kind of desensitizing the tissue, maybe releasing some trigger points, but perhaps most importantly, we're settling down the nervous system. We're kind of calming everything down. We could also use some more superficial work, so near the surface. So things like gua sha, scraping, and maybe some of the mobility WOD voodoo flossing as well. So it's releasing the sliding surfaces between the skin and the fascia and helping everything move a bit more smoothly. So we can also use stretching, and that can be static stretching in its kind of basic form, or dynamic stuff, which can be controlled, or even a little bit more explosive and ballistic. And then there are kind of different things we can do within the stretching or within the kind of pressure. We can add bands to distract joints, we can add weights, we can play with our breathing patterns. So there's lots of different modalities we can use to kind of switch things up and try and tackle a problem from different angles. So back to the squat, if we're looking to improve our ankle mobility, we might do a little bit of foam rolling for a couple of minutes on the gastro, maybe some gua sha around the Achilles and the heel for a few minutes, then maybe just your classic calf gastro stretch for a minute. So we're freeing up restriction, increasing range of motion, settling down the nervous system, and now hopefully there's a bit more space for us to play around with. So R number 3, perhaps the most important one that most people miss out on, is to reinforce. So we're often pretty good at doing the first 2, particularly the second one, so we're creating space and releasing a bit of tension, but we often then fail to create some stability and strength and to kind of reinforce a new position. So that's how we fall back into our old habits and we don't seem to make any progress. So that hard work we've done crying over the foam roller is kind of wasted because we're just back where we started. We haven't put that newfound range of motion actually into practice. There's a few ways you can do it. Starting zoomed in this time at level 1. You can just use basic joint specific kind of isolation exercises to create a little bit of stability in the joint or in that movement pattern. So we could maybe use resistance bands like with the rotator cuff, maybe some controlled joint articulations at end range, just some simple balance exercises on one leg, potentially for the ankle. PNF style stretching kind of fits in here too, so it's that contract relax style of stretching where we're telling the nervous system that we're strong in this position. Weighted stretching kind of fits in here too. So a little broader with level 2, we can think about our gross movement pattern. So can we integrate this newfound mobility and the stability into our actual everyday patterns? So squatting, hinging, pushing, pulling, twisting, crawling. The simple, again, going back to the squat, if we've improved our squat depth by increasing our ankle range of motion, we can now look to get deeper into the squat when we're working in the gym or when we're using it in yoga. Maybe think about it more load in the gym as well, and increasing the complexity of our movement. So we're putting that mobility and the stability into action. So we're going broader again with level 3, it's the last part of it. So we're looking at our habits outside our movement practice. How does this challenge that we've been looking at, the mobility issue, fit into our everyday life? So we could look at sitting and standing postures, gait patterns, how we walk, how we run, the footwear that we choose to wear, how our home environment and our office is kind of set up, how we pick things up off the floor and lift them up overhead. Essentially, what are some of the tweaks we can make to solidify this new position or pattern in the 23 hours of the day that we're not spending working out or practicing our movement. So again, with the squat, sitting is a massive one. So what can we do to kind of minimize that, to make it have less of an impact, and to maybe incorporate more deeper squatting into our everyday lives instead of sitting. So recapping the third and final R, we're reinforcing new stable positions with a combination of specific strengthening exercises, our gross movement patterns, and our habits in everyday life. So that's about it for this one. So I hope you enjoyed it. Remember that this is just kind of a framework and it needs to be tweaked depending on what thing you're dealing with. But hopefully it should give you a good start and hopefully a better understanding of how mobility and stability fits into the bigger picture. Those seagulls are loud. The bigger picture of movement, of performance, and just well-being as well, I suppose. So let me know below if you have any questions about what I've shared today. And remember, if you want to get the PDF infographic thing that explains all this in probably a much clearer format, then that's linked in the description below. Other than that, if you enjoyed, then hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you want more videos about mobility and movement and nutrition and well-being. I'll be back next week. Have a healthy, heroic one, and